Don't mind me. I need a shot of rum sometimes before I go on a trip down memory lane. This is the 2015 director's commentary for Swing Shift. Now, the version that we're going to be doing today. Cheers. The version that we're going to be doing commentary for today is actually the 2005 DVD version. Now, I'm just getting set up here. Making sure sound is going good. Everything's going good. Camera looks good. Yeah, so this essentially is my first sort of... this is my second short film that I ever made. And it was the first time we ever tried to do something in the horror genre. And it's pretty interesting to go back and look at this early stuff. We learned a lot this day. I mean, this was an interesting day. This was filmed just after Christmas. I believe it was the weekend after Christmas in 2003. Myself and my good buddy Nick West, we were about 16 at the time, and we had just made the first short film that I had ever made, which was Weekend at Carl's the month previous. So this was really pretty much a debut effort, if you could ever see one. So, and it shows. It really does show. It's one of those movies where I look back on it now and I go, oh my god, I can't believe I'm still making sequels to this movie. But that's kind of the fun thing about the Swing Shift series overall, is that it shows a lot of growth. Now, there were a few back steps, namely Swing Shift 4, which I don't like to talk about too much, but this one is, I can forgive this one's, this one's simplicity simply because it was basically my second movie and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So yeah, like I said, this is the 2005 DVD version. Now, I mentioned that specifically because the original version is actually a little bit different. There were a couple of scenes that were cut out of the original VHS version. The movie was originally released on VHS in 2003. And literally that was edited I came up with the idea, I shot the entire movie, I edited the entire movie, I released the entire movie, and was showing it to people all in one day. One day. The actual production lasted about 2 hours. So... it was very early, and this is not just saying editing. I mean, I wasn't using a computer to edit back in those days. I did only use a computer for the titles, which were created with, which was burned onto a video CD, not a DVD. This was before I had access to DVD. It was on a video CD, and then I would use my 2 VCRs to, actually no, it was 1 VCR and my camera and my DVD player that I would use to kind of, record, pause, edit the movie. This is not that version. This version that we're about to see is what I call the glitchy version. It was released, the first thing I ever released on DVD in 2005. And this version here was actually a dub of the internet release version. I actually did release it as a downloadable audio or downloadable video file on an old GeoCities website many moons ago. And that was the internet version, as I called it, and then there was the original VHS. So this was literally copied from the VHS version, then it turned into the internet version, then I turned around and made it the DVD cut. And for many years, this was the most accessible version of the movie. So, without any further ado, I got all my introductory comments out of the way. Let's actually watch Swing Shift, the original version. Now, by the way, if you've not seen Swing Shift, it is on my channel. That's why I'm doing this commentary now. It is on my channel. I highly recommend you go check it out. I will leave the video in the description so you can actually check out the movie proper, and then you can come on back and we'll check this thing out together, and I will give you some information as we go along. So, let's get started here. 3, 2, 1, and play. Yeah, back in the days of Acid Entertainment. It's now Acid Unlimited. Now this is interesting here. Acid Entertainment and Suicide Syndicate. Suicide Syndicate lasted for about a day. It was to release this one version of Swing Shift, and then it subsequently became Black Fog Pictures, which I released every Swing Shift movie after Part 3 from 2006 onward. Now this first shot, as you'll see right here with me flicking that lighter, that's how I came up with the entire idea for Swing Shift. I don't know what the fuck it was, but this was just a couple of days after Christmas in 2003. I mean, probably like December 27th or something like that. And we were taking the Christmas tree down in the living room, and I was just sitting in my room flicking that lighter, and for some reason I just got this weird idea, like, hey, we should go to the cemetery and make a slasher movie. And I got on the phone with Nick West about an hour later, and I was like, dude, you want to do this movie? I got this idea. And he's like, yeah, I'll be over. He brought his vehicle over, and we actually went out to the... We shot this scene. We shot this scene first, and then we went out to the cemetery. Now, this jacket here has appeared in a number of my movies. I actually got it as a Christmas present that particular Christmas, so I'd only had it for a couple days, and I was already putting it in a movie. That jacket has subsequently been worn by Uncle Jack in quite a few of the sequels. And it's actually a way that you can tell the real Uncle Jack from the fake Uncle Jacks in later movies. In fact, this movie was made before we called him Uncle Jack. Now, he's credited as Uncle Jack in the credits, but we didn't come up with that name for the character until we did a Camp Road Massacre almost a year later. So, originally in the VHS version, he was called The Shape, very much akin to Michael Myers. And yeah, so he didn't have the name Uncle Jack yet. Now here we're at the cemetery. This is the Woodbridge Cemetery. It's actually a very, very small cemetery. And we're looking at a tree that we were planning to shoot the scene at, but the groundskeepers that were there, they were very cool, by the way, while we were shooting until the very end. I'll talk more about that. But they actually pointed out, instead of using the tree we were looking at in that shot, this tree, which is at the very back of the cemetery. So obviously this is not the tree we were looking at. The tree we were looking at was actually much smaller. So I find that an interesting transition. He goes, of course the small one, because it's fucking dying anyway. And then he goes, this tree's fucking huge. So, you know, again, the work of a beginning filmmaker. Yeah, so... By the way, the most popular word in this movie is fuck. We say the fuck word about 30 times. I think I counted at one point. It was many years ago, but I think I counted. I got it to like 33 in a 5-minute movie. You know, we said the fuck word. Fuck! Yeah, this is my favorite one when I yell that out a little bit later on. So here, Nick has his hard hat, and you know, he was actually working construction. Nick was actually younger than me, so we were both 16. Nick was already working construction. There's Uncle Jack making his first appearance. Now, this is interesting. I decided, I don't know why I did this, but the first thing for Uncle Jack to do in any movie is to throw a double axe handle, like Macho Man Randy Savage or something. Double axe handle. Nick goes down. Nick had to take that dive twice, of course, and you saw that there. We didn't make a very clean transition. He just kind of hits the deck. Then I've got that knife, and then pretend to stab Nick with it. And now that blood there that you see, that, well, you're supposed to think it's blood. It's actually just dirt. We did make some fake blood for this movie, but it was really, really bad. It was essentially V8 and cranberry juice. It was V8 juice and cranberry juice mixture. That was our fake blood for this movie. We started using actual fake blood later on. Now this is interesting here. There's a jump cut in this scene, and that's because we had to do this take a few times. And this was before I caught on to we just have to redo the entire take. We just set up and just said, oh, we'll just pick it up from when I stand up and we'll start walking. Because I had to do this take about 3 times. And so there's that jump cut there. That's always one of the weirdest moments in the movie for me, is just like noticing that just weird jump cut. It's actually more of a jump cut in the VHS version. Then you can actually see all 3 of the jump cuts. Now, that whole thing was to set up that, you know, you could show me walking down the main pathway and then Uncle Jack comes out from behind a corner. The problem is, Uncle Jack, played by Nick West, was operating the camera. So he had to go running around the fucking outside of the gravestones there in order to get right behind me as I walked past. So yeah, that was an interesting setup. And one thing I wanted to quickly mention while I have a minute here, and yeah, I'm fleeing in terror. I'm gonna stop and have a cigarette. What the fuck? Oh, the mind of a 16-year-old stoner. So I'm fleeing in terror. I stop and have a cigarette. Of course, he shows up with the fucking chainsaw and is about ready to carve my balls off. And this is my favorite shot of the movie right here. Oh, I still love that shot. There's just something very Texas Chainsaw-ish about that shot, where he's just walking with the camera, or with the chainsaw running, and I just love that. Now, this version of the movie has really bad sound, and the original VHS version did not sound like this, and that's why I really want to do a remastered version at some point, because, yes, as he sets the chainsaw down, and we do an in-camera fade-out, which is why it's kind of an awkward fade-out. It kind of pauses there, and then it fades out. And because I had to do that in-camera, I just to turn the exposure down to nothing manually. And the end. And there's our cast list, written and directed by myself. Uncle Jack 1, Uncle Jack 2, yes. So he is actually credited as Uncle Jack in this movie, and we are coming to an end. So we're pulling back out to full view here. He is credited as Uncle Jack in this version of the movie. But in the original, he was called The Shape, like Michael Myers from Halloween. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make that movie. The one thing I didn't have time to comment on, though, is that I mentioned how cool the groundskeepers were to let us shoot in there, and they suggested that tree. The problem was they locked us in the cemetery. So when we got done shooting and we were ready to leave, we had to fucking jump the fence. And I am no good fence climber, believe me. One thing I can't do is climb fucking fences. So that was a weird thing. And then one of the people that lived in the houses across the street from the cemetery, because the thing about the cemetery is it's very small and it's right in the middle of a suburban neighborhood, and so there are houses right across the street. And so somebody eventually actually called the police, and we got home, like we got in Nick's truck and he dropped me off and went back home, and the plan was that I was going to edit the movie and then bring it back over to his house, because we were going to hang out later that night anyway. I was going to edit the movie and then bring it back over to his house to show him the finished cut. And so that's what happened. I went home. He dropped me off. He went home. I edited the movie right then and there. Back in the days of editing on a VCR, literally. Like, I would plug in my camera to the VCR and hit record pause, whenever I was doing a scene. So I would record, I'd play the scene from the camcorder, and then when the scene was over, I'd pause and then go to the next scene in case there was a bad take or whatever. And so that's how we edited Swing Shift. And in fact, very much of what you just saw, even on the DVD cut, was borrowed from the VHS cut. So only a few minor modifications, like the jump cut there in the middle, was shortened. It was actually, you would see me stand up from finding Nick's dead body, go, oh my god, and then turn around and start walking very slowly away. Like, you find your friend dead in front of you, and then you just turn around and just go, oh my god, I gotta get the fuck out of here, and then just fucking snail's pace walk away. So we staged that shot, and then in the VHS version, you would see there's a jump cut, and then there's another jump cut. So it's like, I'm walking, and then I'm taking 2 steps, and I jump back 2 steps, and then I'm walking, and then I jump back 2 steps, and then I'm walking again. So that version, I cut one of those jump cuts out of there, so it's not quite as harsh. But also the sound problems with this version have always been a big problem. So I definitely want to do a remastered version. But just to quickly finish the story, though, about the police getting called on us. So I edited the movie, I had it all done, and then I went back over to Nick's house later on that night to show him the finished cut of the movie. And he was telling me, he's like, dude, there were cops in my living room. Like, I went into the shower to wash the fake blood off, and when I came out, there were 2 cops in my fucking living room. And I went, what? He goes, yeah, they said somebody was killed and there was a chainsaw. And I was like, no fucking way. He's like, yeah, these cops must have thought that this was all bullshit anyway, but they showed up, and yeah, and it was like, no, we made a movie and this and that. So that's the only time I can ever remember the cops being called on us for making movies, which is kind of a shock in retrospect, because we did some pretty crazy things. We've lit fires in the neighborhood. We've shotguns. We didn't fire the shotguns, but I mean, we had shotguns waving around, running down the street. I mean, we did some crazy shit back in the day. And for some reason, that was the only time we ever got the cops called on us. So, anyway, this has been fun. I had fun doing this. I hope you had fun watching this commentary and reliving some of the memories of making Swing Shift with me. I will be doing more of these, so I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you all very soon. Peace the fuck out. I need another shot of rum.